Now for a closer look at movie toy merchandising, let's bring in Dan Chuba, the CEO of Legacy Classics Entertainment in California. Welcome.
Hello there.
Now Dan, what kind of movies are really good candidates for merchandising?
Well, my particular area is animation, and those are also particularly strong. And you look at certain live-action movies like Star Wars as being essentially animated films with live actors in an animated synthetic world. Interesting, I was listening to what you were saying about Trolls. Trolls is actually a very cyclical business story in that it started out as a toy brand that was reinvigorated by becoming a movie and then became a big toy story again. So I think that the best films to drive toy sales are films with characters.
So then so strategy-wise, you mentioned this idea of Trolls going from toys to then a cartoon and movies and other things. So which comes first? You have the movie, the merchandising. Which ones, in terms of what gets made and what doesn't, how do they work their strategy when it comes to merchandising potential?
Well, I think originally toy sales were thought of as part of the general revenue package of a film, but not as large of a percentage of the overall revenue as they are now. For instance, the Star Wars movies can make more in toy sales than the gross of the film. Cars for Pixar is an example of that. Cars, I think, is going to do $10 billion in toy sales, so 3 times what the movies gross. Is that answering your question?
Yes, yes. So you talked about a couple of different films there. In terms of the ones that can make money from toy merchandising as opposed to others, can you give us any of examples? You've mentioned Star Wars. Any of the ones that have really kind of blown everyone out of the water when it comes to merchandising?
Well, Cars is that. So, for instance, I love all the Pixar movies, so I'm not judging it, but it's not the most critically acclaimed of the Pixar films, but it's by far the highest earner. And that's because of the toy sales. And it's a movie that's specifically designed to sell toys because of the subject of the film.
Now, how does movie merchandising in the United States compare to, say, China and other countries around the world?
Well, the U.S. 4% of the total, all licensing of merchandise in the world. China is relatively small, but it's the fastest growing. China is on the list of licensing markets, but it is grown by 24%, which is by far the largest, and it has the biggest upside.
Now, given the increasing cooperation between the US and China in movie production, can we expect that to translate into more cooperation in merchandising as well?
It should. There's an interesting retail scenario in China that it is, there's no dominant retail player. It's very fragmented, and on the distribution side, it's driven by government regulation, but also one of the largest drivers of merchandise is television series, and the television landscape in China is very tiered with what's allowed to appear on television and TV series for kids. So the market's very different there. Partnerships are key to success, as we've seen. I think on the, for instance, on the e-commerce side, there's only one foreign player, that's Amazon, and Amazon only has 2% of the market there.
Now, Legacy has several movies in production, including the English language version of the hit Chinese film Big Fish and Begonia, as well as Angry Birds 2. So do you have a merchandising plan for those movies?
Well, the merch for Angry Birds comes from Rovio, the parent company who owns the game, so that's unfortunately not ours. Big Fish and Begonia, we're doing the English language version of that, so the merchandise such as it is, although that's not naturally a merchandisable film. In the U.S., Big Fish and Begonia, interestingly, is going to be seen as a movie for adults and teens. It's not really considered a kids' film. So, because it's a drama, it's a fantasy, it has very sort of serious philosophical issues. The typical strong merchandise-driving animated film would be a talking animal film like Zootopia or something like that.
All right, thank you so much for your insights, Dan Chuba, CEO of Legacy Classics Entertainment in California.